I'd like to welcome those of you who are here for the first time. Obviously, I'd like to welcome Dr. Kevin and Doi, right? And so also I'd like to welcome you, brother. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And all of us, right? And those of you who are on Facebook, bienvenidas y bienvenidos. And so Dr. Doi has been a person that has served around these communities, around this area, right, for some years. I think you are the founder of Hoya, which is basically a non-profit organization that creates opportunity for people who want to go to college and they don't have maybe the resources, the guidance, or sometimes the connections to do what they have to do. So Dr. Doi is the founder of one of the founders that initiated that Hoya. And so I'm familiar with Hoya, I believe, because of a friend of mine by the name of Laura Macias, and I think she was one of the directors, and she came here to present one of those evenings in the past, and so it's great. And you are a chaplain and also a professor at Fuller, leading the one of the departments of the Christian formation for the Asian American community, I believe. And so I'm trying not to read this, okay? And so, and you being around, you live in Diamond Bar, and so we just want to welcome you. In the name of the Lord, please come. And I think I'm going to give you the other mic, or you can get it if you want. And we're going to try. We've never done this before together, so we're going to try to do the same thing that we do every fourth Friday of the month, which is, hey, we'll do this together, okay? So why don't you put your hands together for Dr. Doi.
Thank you. Well, what's good for me is sitting down and preaching. So okay. I'm going to be tempted to stand up, but I'll
do whatever you want.
I'll sit in my chair.
Yeah, you do whatever you need to do. You don't need to sit down. I mean, I follow you. Yo te voy a seguir a ti, okay? I follow you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. It's good to be here. Thank you for the warm greeting. I just want to say how much I appreciate, even very briefly, those of you who shared about, in response to your wonderful question at the beginning about how either the church or your friends or family came around to you in a time of need, and many of you shared about losing your partner or loved one, and so thank you for sharing. That's very tender.
So, quiero darle gracias a ustedes que compartieron con nosotros con el testimonio de cómo la comunidad, la iglesia les apoyó en el tiempo en que perdieron aún sus compañeros de vida.
So, as Pastor Alfredo had mentioned, I was a founding pastor of a church here in Fullerton and pastored for 20 years in the community before going to Fuller Seminary.
Se fundé una iglesia hace 20 años atrás y fui el pastor fundador de esa iglesia antes de ir al seminario de Fuller a trabajar.
And we were involved quite a bit in the city, and we started some nonprofits. One of our families actually started the Fullerton Art Walk many years ago.
Y estuvimos muy involucrados en la ciudad, y una de nuestras familias inició un proyecto, say that again, the last word, project.
Art Walk.
La caminata de Fullerton.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I remember in those years, and it's probably still true, but one of the major issues in Fullerton that the city was trying to address was the unhoused people.
Yo creo que una de las cosas desafiantes de aquellos años es cuando la ciudad estaba tratando de tomar cuidado de las personas sin casa.
And when they did surveys, there was at the time about 70 unhoused people who would call Fullerton home. However, there were upwards of at least double of that who were in the city of Fullerton any given day.
En ese tiempo habían como 70 personas que vivían en la ciudad, pero estaban sin casa.
And Fullerton became known as the place where the unhoused could get a hot meal 7 days a week.
Y la ciudad de Fullerton fue cuando comenzó a conocerse como el lugar donde las personas sin casa podían tener alimento y un lugar de apoyo durante los 7 días de la semana.
On one hand, the church was responsible for serving meals and very well-meaning, and people do need to eat.
Por un lado, es importante reconocer que la iglesia tiene la responsabilidad de dar comidas y tener ese sentido de responsabilidad, porque la gente tiene que comer.
And in the wintertime, there's, as many of you probably know, there's the armory where the unhoused can find shelter during the cold months.
Y como saben, durante el tiempo del invierno hay formas que se establecieron para que las personas sin casa puedan tener un lugar caliente.
But in the summer months and the warm months, they're on the street. But it created a problem, exacerbated a problem even more so, because the city of Fullerton was not able to serve adequately the number of people that were coming here for the meals and staying.
Y la cosa es que en el tiempo del verano no se podía hacer lo mismo, estaban en las calles y eso produjo un problema mayor más adelante porque otras gentes querían venir a Fullerton y la ciudad no tenía capacidad para tomar cuidado de esas necesidades.
And so, feeding the unhoused is a very noble and needed thing. But research shows that what unhoused people really need is to be housed, number one.
Alimentar a las personas sin casa es algo muy noble, pero los estudios demuestran que lo que primero que necesitan las personas que están sin casa es conseguir una casa.
And also, when the services that unhoused people need, from medical care to addiction support to social services to job employment services, are all under one roof.
Y la cosa es que todos esos servicios que se necesitan, cuidados médicos, asuntos de atención, de salud, diferentes tipos de cosas que las personas necesitan en sus vidas, están bajo una misma cobertura.
People need holistic care.
La gente necesita cuidado holístico.
That's accessible and affordable.
Que es accesible y también se puede lograr, es accesible y se puede lograr, se puede conseguir.
And I share that because oftentimes the church either seeks to meet spiritual needs.
Y digo esto porque algunas veces las iglesias tienden más que todo a pensar en las necesidades espirituales de las personas.
Or serves in such a way that it meets one aspect of human care.
O simplemente se dedican a cubrir un aspecto de la necesidad de la necesidad humana.
And I want us to consider tonight seeing people as whole people.
Y me gustaría que esta noche consideráramos a la gente como una gente completa, entera, no por pedacitos.
So I'm going to read from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8.
Vamos a leer del Evangelio de Lucas, capítulo 8, versículo 26 al 39. Just one pause. I'm gonna tell them to read with you, and I'm gonna tell the Spanish-speaking reading people to read it on their own, so that will make easier the process.
Can I read all the way through this?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course. Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
all right.
Entonces, aquellos que están leyendo en español pueden leerlo en sus casas o pueden leerlo en su Biblia. Y es Lucas capítulo 8, versículo 26 al 39.
So it's a fairly long story, but it's a good one.
Es una historia larguita, pero es buena. Así que la vamos a leer.
Hang in there. Okay. So then they arrived, meaning the disciples and Jesus, at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he, meaning Jesus, stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Verse 32. Now there was on a hillside a large herd of swine, pigs, feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it to the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So I want to share briefly what I call being a therapeutic community, or the church being a therapeutic community.
Quiero compartir por un momento lo que significa para mí la iglesia ser una comunidad terapéutica.
Therapeutic meaning a context for healing.
Algo terapéutico es un lugar de sanidad.
I know that here you've been having conversations about supporting people with mental health challenges.
Yo sé que en este lugar ustedes han estado teniendo conversaciones acerca de cómo apoyar a las personas que tienen desafíos con cuestiones mentales.
And I want to pull back a little to talk about the larger context of how that ministry can be most effective.
Y yo quisiera hacer como una pausa y tratar de mostrar cómo ese tipo de ministerio tiene un contexto más amplio para que podamos hacerlo mucho mejor, tal vez.
So, a few things about this man. One, he's described as having no clothes.
Primera cosa que quiero compartir acerca de esta historia de este hombre es que andaba sin ropa.
He no longer lived in a house, but in a graveyard.
No vivía en una casa, vivía cerca de las tumbas, cementerio.
And in Luke's account, it's Gentile in character. So the fact that the man is in the tombs, in the presence of pigs, would tell Luke's readers that this man was deemed unclean, number one, and it was a picture of a dehumanized person.
En el contexto del Evangelio de Lucas, se muestra que este hombre es una persona que no solamente andaba desnudo, pero también estaba en las tumbas, pero también estaba cerca de los cerdos, de los puercos, y muestra una imagen de este hombre desfigurado, un humano desfigurado.
He was a man who had suffered violence. He suffered violence from the demons who tried to seize the man. The townspeople tried to bind him with shackles and chains.
Este es un hombre que ha sufrido violencia de demonios y que lo están tratando de controlar, y de violencia de parte de la gente que estaba tratando también de controlarlo, controlarlo con cadenas.
So I want to focus here on when Jesus encounters the man, what Jesus does for him.
Quiero centrarme en esta noche en cuando Jesús encuentra al hombre, qué es lo que Jesús hace por él.
So in verse 35 it says, when the people came out after Jesus had cast the demons out of the man.
En el versículo 35 dice que cuando la gente vino y observó que el hombre había sido liberado de los demonios,
that they found the man from whom the demons had gone, so there was spiritual healing.
Entonces encontraron que este hombre, el cual le había liberado de los demonios, hay una sanidad espiritual.
Sitting quietly at the feet of Jesus.
Estaba sentado calmadamente a los pies de Jesús.
He was a man that could not even be held still with chains and shackles, sitting quietly.
Este era un hombre que nadie lo podía dominar, ni siquiera con cuerdas metálicas o con cadenas. Y ahora está tranquilo y calmado en los pies de Jesús.
There was an emotional peace about him.
Tiene una paz emocional también.
He was clothed.
Y también estaba vestido.
Physical healing.
Tenía sanidad física.
Luke doesn't tell us where those clothes came from, so I am interpreting this to probably, or at least assume, that Jesus takes the clothes off his own back and gives it to the man.
El texto no lo dice, por lo tanto, yo voy a tratar de interpretarlo desde mi punto de vista, dice el doctor Kevin, que tal vez Jesús se quitó su propia ropa y lo vistió. No toda, pero algo.
And he's in his right mind.
Y no solo eso, el hombre tiene la mente estable ahora.
So psychological healing.
Tiene sanidad psicológica también.
And so here's a man who has been given back his humanity.
Aquí está un hombre el cual ha recibido su humanidad de regreso.
So the Spirit of Christ is a humanizing spirit.
El espíritu de Jesús es un espíritu que humaniza al ser humano.
So you can imagine why this man, now healed in completeness, in wholeness, wants to follow Jesus.
Ahora ustedes pueden observar cómo este ser humano que está completamente entero, ahora completo, quiere seguir a Jesús.
But surprisingly, Jesus says, no.
Pero sorprendentemente Jesús dice, no.
Go back to your home and tell them all that I've
Regrese a
done.
su casa y díganle todo lo que yo he hecho.
I think Jesus understands that this man, for his healing to be complete, needs to go home.
Pienso que este hombre, o que Jesús entiende que para que este hombre tenga una sanidad total, debe regresar a casa.
To be reconciled with his family.
Para reconciliarse con su familia.
And then his community needs to help him be reintegrated into society as a citizen.
Y también su comunidad tiene que ayudarle a reintegrarse a la sociedad como parte de ella.
And I think that's a picture of the role of the church.
Y pienso que esta es una imagen de lo que la iglesia debe hacer.
The ministry of Jesus is holistic and it's communal.
El ministerio de Jesús es holístico y también es comunal.
I have a slide, Sebastian. So as human persons, we are made up of different aspects of ourselves. Spiritual, emotional, physical, psychological, familial, and social.
Como seres humanos tenemos una serie de cosas que forman parte de nosotros, la parte espiritual, social, familiar, psicológica, física y emocional.
If you hit the next. And we live in the world.
Y vivimos en un mundo.
And this world impacts us in different ways.
Y este mundo nos impacta de diferentes formas.
There are aspects of the world that bring us life and joy.
Hay aspectos del mundo que nos trae vida y alegría.
Like when we get to eat or work meaningful jobs or to play or to travel or to get an education.
Cuando comemos, cuando viajamos, cuando tenemos educación, cuando tenemos diferentes cosas buenas pasando en nuestra vida.
But we also live in a society where there is violence and poverty and racism.
También vivimos en una sociedad donde hay violencia, pobreza, racismo.
And the effects of migration and climate.
Y los efectos de la migración y el asunto climático.
And these other forces oppress us and dehumanize us.
Y este tipo de fuerzas nos oprimen y nos deshumanizan.
And so when we care for people, we want to consider all the ways in which people are impacted by simply living in this world.
Cuando estamos cuidando de la gente, tenemos que pensar en todas las maneras en que el mundo impacta a estas personas a las cuales queremos ayudar.
And so the question I want to ask is, where is the church community that will address matters of support for people as they walk in this world with all its joys and its hurts?
Entonces, ¿dónde está la iglesia, la comunidad de la iglesia que va a caminar con este tipo de personas? Y ella misma es una comunidad que tiene sus propios quebrantos y sus propias alegrías.
Bueno, I have a family member.
I almost thought you were going to speak in Spanish. I hear you say bueno. I said, okay, all right, let's do that. Sorry. I was getting too excited. Okay.
I do have a family member.
Yo sí tengo un miembro de mi familia
who struggles with mental health.
que batalla con problemas mentales.
They have bipolar.
Es una persona bipolar.
Suffers from depression.
Sufre con la depresión.
Has allergies.
Tiene alergias.
And I know when they are not doing well mentally.
Y yo sé que cuando este tipo de personas no les está yendo bien mentalmente,
it affects them physically.
Les afecta físicamente.
It affects them socially.
Les afecta socialmente.
Their ability to work and go to school.
La habilidad también de ir al trabajo y de ir a la escuela.
And emotionally and spiritually.
Y espiritualmente y emocionalmente.
That's why the church cannot too narrowly focus only on spiritual needs.
Y ahí es donde la iglesia no debería enfocarse solamente en asuntos de espiritualidad.
We have to rethink spiritual to mean it's all spiritual.
Cuando hablemos de espiritualidad, deberíamos hablar de todo, no solamente de la parte espiritual.
Because we worship a God who cares about every aspect of us.
Porque nosotros adoramos un Dios que le importan todos los aspectos de nuestras vidas.
And God sees and understands how we are impacted by the world.
Y Dios puede ver y entender cómo somos impactados por el mundo.
I don't know. I have a few questions for folks.
Definitely. You still have time. You have like 3 more minutes. I'm just kidding. No. Not seriously. You go ahead.
Should I give a few examples?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So these are just some examples of when I pastored in Fullerton, some of the things that we did. I think it's difficult for any one ministry to address the whole person.
Yo pienso, voy a compartir con ustedes algunos ejemplos de cuando mi tiempo que trabajé aquí en Fullerton, pero también quiero que sepan que es un poquito difícil atender todas las necesidades, ¿verdad?
Most ministries will address one or two things.
La mayoría de los ministerios solamente van a tomar cuidado de una o dos cosas de esas personas o esas necesidades.
But the church can think about how their ministries in total address the full range of a person.
Pero la iglesia como un todo, puede pensar también cómo todos sus ministerios pueden cubrir la mayoría de las necesidades de alguna manera.
So where we were located, we were in between actually 2 shelters.
Cuando estábamos en el lugar, you were in between 2 shelters.
Yeah.
Estaban localizados entre 2 refugios.
So we used to encourage people to go out to lunch after church on Sundays.
Say that again, that's one.
We used to encourage people to go out to eat for lunch in Fullerton after service.
Le pedíamos a la iglesia que por favor fueran a comer en Fullerton después del servicio.
And we realized that a good number of people could not actually afford to go out for lunch.
En nuestra iglesia, algún número de gente no podían ir a comer porque no tenían con qué.
So I learned a lot from that experience.
Yo aprendí muchísimo de esa experiencia.
About my assumptions.
De la forma en que yo asumía las cosas, que todo el mundo podía ir a comer después del servicio.
So besides the rent for a building and the pastor's salaries,
además del dinero que se utilizaba para la renta del edificio y el pago del pastor del salario,
our biggest budget item in the budget was food.
Nuestro mayor componente en el presupuesto era cómo comprar comida, para la comida.
I think that's why so many people like the church. I think that's why so many people like the church.
Yo pienso que esta es la razón porque mucha gente le gustaba la iglesia. You will see that tonight.
Yeah, so we ate every
Sunday.
Oh, all right.
Comida. What, tamales? Tamales para esta noche. Because they thought you were Mexican American. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. My mom's from Boyle Heights.
Es Mexican. Good.
Yeah.
So
on Christmas it's Japanese and Mexican.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, they'll bring the Christmas gift. Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah. We also We also, in our budget, had money for therapy.
También en nuestro presupuesto teníamos dinero para terapias de la gente.
Because we didn't want anyone to not be able to see a professional therapist because of money.
Porque no queríamos que la gente dijera no tengo cómo no ir a ver una terapista.
We had workshops and seminars on grief and loss.
Teníamos seminarios y teníamos presentaciones acerca de la pérdida, del dolor.
We encouraged play.
Y también animamos que la gente jugara.
And we encouraged rest.
Y también animamos a la gente que descansara.
Many of our leaders who came from other places could not imagine a church that would let them rest.
Muchos de los líderes que venían de otros contextos no se podían imaginar una iglesia que los animara a descansar.
But one of the most holy things you can do is to sleep.
Y tal vez una de las cosas más sagradas que tú puedes hacer es descansar, es dormir. Oh, but don't do that tonight, please.
Yeah.
Here. No vaya a hacer eso. Yeah.
And so that's just a way of, I wanted to give you a lens to see that ministry can address all of human need.
Esta es una manera de dar un ejemplo de cómo nuestro ministerio de la iglesia, puede tratar de atender las necesidades de las personas.
Because God sees and loves all of who we are.
Porque Dios mira y ama todo lo que somos.
Amen.
Amen. So normally we allow people to ask questions, and I know we started a little bit later today, like a little bit late. Normally we start at 7, and that's our responsibility, obviously. But yeah, so I would like to know if you would like to be able to respond to some questions that people may have. Queremos ver si el doctor Kevin Doi puede responder algunas preguntas. So, you have like some more?
Yeah, so would you prefer me to answer questions, or would you like them to be in small groups to think about?
It's up to you. You're the leader.
Well, you're as a pastor. Would the conversation be helpful for the church?
I think so, but I think I would like to follow you. Whatever you think is best, it will be fine.
Okay. I actually would like to bring people into small groups. Would you be willing to talk to each other?
Sí, que si quieren hablar con un tamal y eso, si van a hablar rápido. So I said, so you know, yeah, of course, if you give them a tamale, they will not be talking.
Okay.
Easily. All right, so yeah, podemos reunirnos en grupos pequeñitos para poder hablar acerca de lo que el hermano va a decir. Yes, no? Yeah. For how long do you think it's gonna?
Let's just do number one. What needs do you see in the church? Here, I understand that you meet both Friday and Sunday.
Yeah, so we have this community that is a new worshiping community, like a new church, so to speak. But it's not new, but it's a long story. And then we have the regular legacy church on Sundays.
Okay.
So that is birthing this ministry.
I see.
Yeah.
So you can think about your church community, and you can think about the larger community. I don't know if all of you are from Fullerton or not, but you can think about that and what it would mean to minister to people in wholeness.
Okay, ¿qué significaría entonces ministrar a la gente de una manera plena? So, if you don't mind, I can. So, vamos a reunirnos en grupos, inglés. Vamos a reunirnos en grupos pequeños, okay? Y vamos a contestar la primera pregunta. So, we're going to answer the first question with the small groups, as Dr. Doi has said. So, let's just do that right now, right?
Yeah.
Vamos a hacer eso. Entonces, vamos a movernos, and yeah, vamos a movernos. Now we can stand up. Okay, so choose your people to meet. Carolina y Sebastian, please come. Vamos a hacer un grupo con el Dr. Doi. Vamos a hacerlo. Y Victoria, ven. Vamos a reunirnos con el hermano. Ven. Trate a Victoria, por favor. And for those of you who are on Facebook, or will be on Facebook later, para aquellos que están en Facebook o en YouTube later, so please look into the question, what needs do you see in your own church community, in your neighborhood or city? ¿Qué tipo de necesidades ves en tu propia iglesia y comunidad y en tu propia vecindad o ciudad? Okay?
I fell in my garage.